Oh jeez. I mean, let's segue this into East versus West gap. I mean, I feel like it fits. No.
Yeah.
Um. So for me, the East versus West gap. I feel like this is the first year where everyone just sort of like accepts that it's happening, but I think that it's. I mean, it's been there in previous years, but I think it was like hidden in some ways by the results.
I was kind of talking about it in my
Yeah.
Discord,
Yeah.
and I think this year, comparatively to like the last two, was the first year where I felt truthfully where like top 4 or 5 LCK teams and top 4 or 5 LPL teams, or even we'd even go lower, especially since Sandbox didn't make it over LSB and a couple of the LPL teams that didn't.
That's the craziest thing.
They would all seamlessly and effortlessly win NA and EU.
Yes, that is the craziest thing. Is look at DRX right now. They were like, what on earth? Like, Live Sandbox. Well, I mean, Live Sandbox would shit on NA in EU. Like, what the fuck is going on? But also, even fucking Kwangdong would probably win NA. It's crazy, dude. I mean, it's crazy. You know, the thing that people, you know, I mean, honestly, dude, I want these boot camping orgs to stop. I want fucking the leaks to come out. I want the leaks to come out when the LCS and LEC orgs have negative win rates versus the academy teams. I want those fucking stories to come out from the players, but obviously they never will, right? They'll only talk about their records at, like, international competitions. They will not talk about how when they first come to Korea, they get some scrims versus the top teams. They get absolutely fucking blasted. And then they play the academy teams and they also lose.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
The LCK academy teams are better than most LCS teams and LEC teams. They are.
I think it was in a TL video when they boot camped in spring. They played against... At that point in time, they were scrimming against IG and FPX. And FPX, that was before Summit came back, so that was when the roster was in complete shambles and they weren't on even a playoff team. And in the video or on Twitter or something, the TL players were talking about how they gained so much confidence beating IG and FPX, as if like they were like fucking Thanos when those like aren't even playoff. Like IG didn't make playoffs and FPX wouldn't have made playoffs. That split without Summit coming back, so it's just like. That's the bar. Right.
I mean, it's rough. Guy in chat says scrims mean nothing, but I mean, yes and no. It means something when you cannot beat the academy team. And you can bet your fucking ass that when they start losing to the academy team, that they are going to try to win the follow-up game.
As fuck.
Yes, it is so demoralizing. They are going to try to win. So then when they can't, yes, it does mean something, guy in chat. Oh my god, yes it does. It means something that the best creme de la creme of your players from your regions are mechanically inferior to the academy players in Korea. Yes it does. It means something. It is a big deal. Because guess what? Dignitas and Immortals are never fucking sweeping any of the top LCS or LEC teams.
The seven-figure players should not be losing to LCK Academy.
No. Yeah, exactly. 7-figure players should not be losing to 4-digit players. Absolutely. Seven-figure players should not be losing to 4-digit, and yet they are when they come boot camp. So, like, Jesus Christ. Okay. I mean, so we can move into East versus West coaching differences if you want to. The problem is that I'm going to have negative things to say, even on the East, because it seems like people have an idea that the East coaching is actually superior. I would argue that it's not. And I know that sounds really weird. Western teams have more people that are strategically inclined a part of the rosters than Eastern teams in general. And that sounds really fucking crazy, but it's true. Like,
I don't know
Western
anything
orgs
about Eastern teams enough to say anything about
right. So this is the thing that really pisses me off when people talk about the differences in Eastern and Western coaching. Western staffs are actually more stacked than Eastern staffs. They're way more stacked in terms of either like people that are a part of actually watching analytically the game compared to like Eastern staffs. I have horror stories about like Eastern staff coaching that I could like say on stream about like what actually goes on. The reality is,
I think it is important to pay some homage though that like 50% of the Western, or at least NA staff, is OS staff. So we got to put some respect on OS. Okay, so don't just say NA coaching, it's OS coaching. Because I swear those motherfuckers be breeding.
Oh my god. But like, okay, so I mean, what did you want to talk about on the East versus West? I will say that in the East, they are not. I don't know how to describe this. Heightened conflict or like emotional conflict is not shied away from the way that it is in the West. Now, the issue for this would end up being that there's a lot of things that, fuck, I'm trying to think how I phrase this because I have to be really careful on phrasing this.
It's like a cultural difference, I think, right? Like the level of respect.
Well, cultural doesn't change if something is abuse. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
I mean, do you agree with that? I don't. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by abuse? What do you mean?
Like, so for instance, back in the day, I think it changed in like recent years, right? But like in Korean high schools, for instance, let's use Korean high schools. It used to be okay for teachers to like hit the kid. I mean, with like a ruler. Right. That's abuse, right? That's abuse.
Obviously not good, but I mean, dude, in real life sports too, like Nick Saban be punching his kids in the locker room, and Alabama never fucking loses. So like, just putting that out there.
But I'm saying that there has to be a line drawn between abuse and like very serious like passion, like for whatever field that you're trying to like win or excel at. But like the other thing that's so fucking crazy is you have all these like documentaries and these tidbits and these interviews that come out even from like real sports about how some of the top players actually behave behind the scenes with like how aggressive they get verbally and even physically, right? Like in real sport, like top athletes in their respective fields, because they feel so disrespected almost if their teammates aren't trying as hard as them, or like if their teammates don't want to try, right? That would make me lose my shit too. I mean, I think I've gotten a lot better over.
It's like a respect gap, dude. Like,
right.
I feel like that clip of Maokai on EDG yelling at his players and like slamming the table and shit like that, and then all the players are like, none of us felt insulted or like aggressed at or whatever the fuck, and we used that as motivation, and it kept us in the game or whatever the fuck and got us back on track. Whereas in the West, I feel like, from what I've heard and what I can imagine, the players that are getting 7 figures and 6 figures, like they just don't respect their fucking like Platinum 1 coach who's telling them what to do, right? So then everyone's like, there's just too many hands in the pot, and then or hands in the kitchen, whatever that fucking saying is, and then
I imagine that it could be different. Like on TSM when Bjergsen was the coach, if Bjergsen acted the same way that Maokai did, it probably would not go over negatively.
That's actually good.
But it's because of Bjergsen's stature within the game, whereas Maokai's, it's literally just his age. Which that part's cultural.
That's what's weird because culturally in NA, I don't know if it's like an age thing, whereas the coaches themselves are similar age or not really that much older, but I mean, growing up and playing real sports in NA is the same way. Like, you'll never talk back to your coach, or you're gonna get fucking punished, or whatever the fuck. Like, you wouldn't even like consider talking back to your coach, and you just listen to him blindly. And it's just not something that happens. I don't know if it's like an age thing or a wage gap thing where people are just getting overpaid and they have an ego, or they think they're better off.
Right. Yeah,
Isn't
I'm
that how
not.
it works in the East? Is like everyone automatically respects their elders or the person above them?
They
Is
will
that how that
do
works?
something that they get told to do without questioning it. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the way it should
Yep.
be.
Uh, I disagree. With Berserker and Summit, I used to it was actually an issue where, or like even Winsome, right, where I would tell them if they don't agree or something, they have to ask why or they have to push back. There was
Yeah, okay,
actually an
so
issue in where they didn't feel comfortable doing that.
yeah. I think that's
But I would keep trying to do it, but then they wouldn't feel comfortable, and so we couldn't actually, like, I mean, I think it takes time to break that cultural thing, right? But I have experience doing that with Korean players, to break the cultural difference, right? It takes a lot of time. It's not something that I think Western idiots or clowns think that it's just something that you can have a conversation about once and then you're done with it, right? There's a major difference between if the Korean players just don't respect you and thus they're willing to do it because there's not the cultural boundary, right? Whereas if the Korean players do respect you and there's the cultural boundary because they actually have respect, they're like something like that. I think that there can be an issue, and this is something that like I encountered. And I've had a lot of encounters with this over all of my time living in Korea, so I know that it's a real thing. And sometimes it leads to lockouts in conversations where a player just won't feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's what I like. Don't get me wrong with what I said. Like, I think it's important for the team as a unit and all the players to be led in the same path, and it shouldn't just be like blindly led by the coach, especially if it's something that's incorrect or that could be incorrect. But like the respect needs to be had for the person leading the unit to have the open conversation between the two if there is something wrong with that one point, right? And that's what I think is lacking, like you said, with like the lockout of conversation or
Right.
like a player being told to do something and he thinks it's incorrect, and it very well could be incorrect, but instead of having the respect to have the open conversation and discuss what's right or wrong or what could be done about it or different
Yeah.
like outlooks or paths to take to fix it, it ends up being like the lockdown, and then or the players like just automatically chalks up the disrespect because he's wrong on this topic, and then that's it, and then the unit can no longer be led as 5.